What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Alexander Volkanovski sends a warning to Islam Makhachev. After sharing the octagon with both Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria, Alexander Volkanovski knows firsthand what it's like competing against both fighters. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. With the news of Topuria making the jump up to 155, Volk thinks that a Makhachev-Topuria fight is the biggest threat to the lightweight champion's reign. During a virtual appearance on the Ariel Helwani show on Wednesday, Volk weighed in on Topuria's move up to 155, sending a warning to Makhachev, saying that if he lands clean, he can knock anyone out, including Islam Makhachev. Ilia is a dangerous fighter and he can catch anyone. If he lands, he could definitely knock Islam out. But some have better chances than others, and Ilia has a better chance than most. Of course, Makhachev also made it pretty clear that he wants to move up and pursue a second title. Just like Ariel had predicted before, Volk thinks that if JDM wins his fight against Belal Muhammad at UFC 315, then Islam will move up to achieve double champ status. You've got the Belal situation. If Jack Della Maddalena wins that fight, Islam's moving up. Let's be real, Islam is moving up straight away. Is that what they're waiting for? There's a lot of moving parts right now. Considering Ilia Topuria said that he has no interest in fighting his way into title contention at 155, it sounds like we might just have to wait and see what the future has in store for the lightweight division after UFC 315, which is set to take place on May 10th. UFC referee admits to huge mistake. During the UFC Seattle headliner between Song Yadong and Henry Cejudo this past weekend, Cejudo ended up receiving a double eye poke during the fight. Even though he managed to survive the rest of the third round, the damage to Cejudo's left eye was so bad that the fight ended up getting called off and going to the judges' scorecards. Now, a couple days after the fight, Cejudo still isn't happy with referee Jason Herzog and decided to call him and air things out during a video for his YouTube channel. During the call, Herzog admitted that looking back, he should have taken a point from Song, and he made a mistake. Here's what he had to say. If you want to watch the full conversation, check out the link in the description.
But you never warned him, or you never took away a point. Be like,
I'll give you my perspectives in the moment, and then just so you hear it. I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong, because I've heard you now, and I completely agree, especially afterwards when it came with his fingers like this. Why didn't you then stop it and take a point immediately? And I think that's a very valid criticism and an adjustment that I probably should have made. Yeah, I think that you're a fair point. And when I watch it again, I'm like, yeah, you should have probably stopped it, taken a point.
Based on the judges' scorecards, if Song Yadong lost a point in the third, the fight would have ended as a majority draw. The way attorney Eric McGracken sees things, everyone makes mistakes, and Herzog's willingness to admit it is commendable. Herzog is one of the best officials. Everyone makes mistakes. Admitting it is a 10-10 move. With Dana White having little to no interest in seeing the two run things back, there's no telling what's next for Henry Cejudo. Is it even worth it for him to continue at this point? Let us know down in the comment section below. Sean Strickland gets called out. Sean Strickland might be dealing with a broken nose in the aftermath of his title fight with DDP, but when he's ready to return, it sounds like there's someone lined up and ready to fight him. During a recent appearance on Homa Fight's On Paper podcast with Anthony Lionheart Smith, Robert Whittaker threw out the possibility of a fight between him and Strickland, saying that Strickland's unique style poses an interesting challenge that he wants to figure out. If you want to check out the full podcast, make sure to check out Anthony Smith's podcast in the description below.
I think Strickland makes a good argument to have. I feel like we've both been in that top sort of pond for a while, circling each other. For whatever reason, we haven't been matched up, but we've both been in proximity for a while. Most likely, the fight to make. I'm excited by that fight. Like, I look at his style and I find it curious. Like, I find it exciting to try and work out. He's a tough dude. I want to come back this year in June. It gives me a good amount of time to just continue doing what I'm doing, but also ease into a camp properly and come in, my best self.
We know Robert Whittaker is too nice of a guy to admit this, but do you think that this call out was because of Strickland's comments leading up to UFC 312? If you don't remember, Strickland basically called out Whittaker for, in his words, being a can and coming out flat for his performance against Khamzat Chimaev. Strickland fight aside, Whittaker had also been called out for a rematch by Jared Cannonier after his recent win over RoboCop at the Apex. So depending on how long Strickland needs to sit out and recover from his injuries, Whittaker could end up taking a fight in the meantime to stay active in June like he mentioned. UFC Fight Updates. Starting with a change to the UFC Mexico card this March, according to ESPN Deportes, Elvis Brenner is out of his fight with Daniel Zellweger, and Austin Hubbard will be stepping in on short notice after his loss to Alexander Hernandez in October. That card will now also play host to a fight between Christian Rodriguez and Melquizael Costa, with Rodriguez looking to build on a win over Austin Bashi. and Costa looking to build on a 2-fight win streak that saw him submit Andre Fili in Seattle. Looking ahead at the UFC Des Moines card in May, Junior Tafa and Tuco Tokos will now collide on the card, with Tafa looking to build on a victory over Sean Sharif in October, and Tokos looking to snap a 2-fight losing streak that's seen him go winless inside the octagon. We've also got some news regarding Modestas Bukauskas, who's now 4-1 since returning to the octagon after a big win over Rafael Seguero in Seattle. No word yet on who he's fighting next, but he's teased news regarding his next fight via social media. Let's keep this steam train rolling. Next fight, bout agreement signed. This will be an explosive matchup for sure. And last but not least in the way of UFC updates, Brian Boom Boom Kelleher announced his retirement via social media in a pair of posts, writing, "I don't know what's next, but it seems fighting has come to an end. What a journey. Thank you all who have supported me. Love you. Boom." He followed that up by adding, "I mean, I would have loved one more fight with the UFC in front of my home fans, but sometimes this is just the way it goes." And finally, wrapping up today's updates section with some grappling news, after Bryce Mitchell withdrew from his Karate Combat grappling match, the promotion booked a match between top 10 middleweights Caio Borralho and Brendan Allen for their Karate Combat Denver card on Friday. Fighters suspended for 9 months for altercation. After an altercation with someone in the crowd connected to Team Habib back in UFC 310, Dennis Buzukja was handed a 9-month suspension from the Nevada State Athletic Commission this week. Footage of the incident at the time was quick to go viral, showing Buzukja and Merab Dvalishvili getting into it with someone in the crowd, who wound up being ID'd as someone close to the Nurmagomedov camp. Because Buzukja took a swing at the man, the NSAC hit him with a 9-month suspension and a fine. Right now, Buzukja could return to action on September 6th, but if he does 40 hours of community service through the Big Brothers Big Sisters Girls and Boys Club and/or Special Olympics, he could have the suspension reduced to 6 months, making him eligible to fight on June 6th. Despite the deal, the commission made it clear that they're considering imposing harsher penalties for fighters who get into altercations with fans, with Chairman Dallas Hahn going so far as to say that if Buzukja ends up in another altercation, they may never sanction him to fight in Nevada. "We can't have this. I know we have a precedent. The fact that he's on the phone and hasn't shown up. This is his one chance with us. Anything more like this and he'll never be in Nevada again. Swinging in the crowd is unacceptable. We cannot have it, but we have a precedent and the community service better be done rigorously with commitment." So far, no word on whether Buzukja plans to do the community service or not. Dustin Poirier believes Conor McGregor can return to the UFC. Although Michael Chandler seems to have all but given up hope of a fight with Conor McGregor and Dana White is no longer giving any sort of potential timeline for the former champ's return, Dustin Poirier thinks a McGregor return is still in the realm of possibility. Even though it's been years since he's fought and Dana White has been publicly raising questions about his commitment to going through a full fight camp, McGregor's such a special fighter that Poirier thinks a return is definitely still possible. During an appearance on the Out of Pocket with RG3 podcast, Poirier weighed in on his former rival.
The cuts, the bumps and bruises, the staph infections, the ringworms, or just the weekly stuff you deal with being in the training camp and being in the gym nonstop. I love to talk trash on Conor, but like if anybody can put it all together and come back, if he can find that passion and that fire and put it together, this guy can. I'm not saying anybody, but this guy can. He's special. Yeah. You know, he has something special, but only he knows, you know, when he looks in the mirror, if he can really do it again.
Yeah.
But if he believes it, I believe he could.
What would you do to get that edge back?
Man, I love when the chips are down. I love when I'm the dog, my back's against the wall. I would use that as the motivation, push forward with that. That would be my, like I would anchor to that and harness on that and just every day in the gym sweating, bleeding, grinding, thinking I'm gonna show everybody who I really am. Coming back from a broken leg, coming back from a few losses, everybody writing me off. That would be my motivation because I love that stuff. I've never lost 2 fights in a row in my career. Every time I lose, this ain't happening.
While at one point in time, McGregor made it clear that he had unfinished business with Poirier, considering the Diamond is working out the details of his retirement fight, it sounds like the ship has sailed regarding a 4th fight between these two. BJ Penn accuses George St-Pierre for using PEDs. GSP's second fight with BJ Penn in 2009 wound up leading to a massive scandal that was, at the time, known as Greasegate. During the first round, one of the commission officials told Keith Kaiser, who at the time was the head of the NSAC, that one of GSP's cornermen, Phil Nurse, had rubbed Vaseline on his upper arms and shoulders. Because of that, after the second round and the third round, GSP's corner was instructed to wipe him down with a towel. After the fight was stopped in the 4th round, BJ and his team called out GSP for greasing, with Dana White backing up his claim, saying that even though GSP himself wasn't trying to cheat, the fact of the matter was that Phil Nurse greased him up. The situation stuck with Penn, who lodged a formal complaint against GSP at the time. However, now, Penn is offering another Even crazier theory suggesting that GSP used PEDs and even had someone wear a lifelike mask and pretend to be him to weigh in and take PED tests for him. In the pair of comments on Instagram, he wrote, "The GOAT drinks beer and eats hot dogs, not needles and pills. Somebody gotta teach this guy the rules." He then followed it up alleging, "Using a mask to have other people weighing for him and using steroids, insulin, growth, hormone, blood, doping, EPO, and whatever else we don't even know that exists, but it's not like he had to take a test because the guy in the mask takes tests for him, obviously. You know the rules. If you want to be the GOAT, you can't break them." How GSP would have allegedly managed to have someone take tests for him and weigh in as him remains a mystery. Dana White reveals new UFC fights. Last night, Dana White went on Instagram to share the new UFC 313 co-main event and revealed a new fight for UFC 314. I guess Wednesday nights are now Dana White's breaking news time for some major fight updates. Well, with that being said, let's get into what's happening in the UFC. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to help support the channel. We'll kick it off with the new UFC 313 co-main event. Ahead of the announcement from Dana White, the UFC's Australia account on social media accidentally leaked the fight by dropping the fight poster just a couple of minutes before Dana White had the chance to break the news. That aside, here's the official announcement for the co-main event of UFC 313.
The new co-main event for March 8th, UFC 313 here in Las Vegas, is going to be Gaethje versus Fiziev. I don't know how much I got to sell Gaethje to you. 13 performance bonuses in 13 fights. 20 of his 25 wins are by knockout. Fiziev in his last fight was cut short due to an unfortunate knee injury. But prior to that, Fiziev had 6 straight performance bonuses. We fixed it. That's a fun one.
Following the announcement of the fight, reputable MMA reporter Aaron Bronstetter revealed some bad news. Due to a last-minute change, the UFC 313 fight will now be a 3-rounder, which is understandable. But it does suck we didn't get a 5-round fight. Here's what Bronstetter had to say. "Some are disappointed that it is a 3-round fight, but under these circumstances, Fiziev is essentially taking a fight against Justin Gaethje on days' notice. It'll be a media day in 1 week, and who knows how much weight he needs to cut." Rafael Fiziev reacted to the fight on social media, writing, "For the fans." However, Mattel's Gamrot, who was ready to step in at UFC 313, wasn't too happy that Justin Gaethje accepted the fight with Fiziev, writing this on social media. "Easier choice stylistically. Strikers have always feared wrestlers. I keep in great shape, and I'm ready for anyone." Rafael Fiziev then fired back with, "No one fears you. You are the one who turned down our rematch on February 1st. Now, we're sure Justin Gaethje most likely accepted the fight with Gamrot, but the UFC decided to give it to Rafael Fiziev." Speaking of Justin Gaethje, he revealed that Arman Tsarukyan, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, and Renato Moicano all said no to the short notice fight on X, writing, "Arman and Charles understandably said no. Max and Dustin understandably said no. Moicano got the call and said no. Props to Fiziev for volunteering to fly across the world and take this fight. Big risk here for me taking this rematch against an elite striker. Life's a trip. Best live show on earth going down March 8th, UFC 313. A fan asked why Arman said no, and he replied with, "That's a big weight cut on short notice." And he followed up with, "To be fair, it takes me 8 to 12 weeks to properly get my body prepared for the weight cut. I fight around 175 like most lightweights. Hard to understand, but that's the way it goes." Arman Tsarukyan saw Justin Gaethje's comments and replied with, "I didn't say no. I accepted immediately and asked for a 160 catch weight 11 days out from weigh-ins. UFC said that wasn't an option." Then Dustin Poirier also reacted to Gaethje's claims of denying the fight. "I never got the call. I didn't say no. I'm the one who reached out to them when I read the news. Ask Hunter. All respect to you and Fiziev. Looking forward to this one again." Justin Gaethje reacted to Dustin's tweet saying, "I was just running back the crazy 48 hours I went through. I was not trying to imply any of you guys would not fight me. Arman was too heavy. Same with Charles. UFC obviously has plans for you at a later date, so they said that's a no-go." Funny enough, in an interview with Bloody Elbow posted last night, Alex Pereira had no idea that Dan Hooker pulled out of the Justin Gaethje fight a few days ago. Alex said that he's too focused on his fight at the moment and didn't have the chance to check out social media. Kinda weird that no one around him never brought it up. Moving on, Dana White announced a UFC 314 fight. Dana revealed that Bryce Mitchell will fight Gene Silva.
UFC 314, April 12th in Miami, Florida. Silva, who fought last weekend and had an unbelievable performance in Seattle, immediately calls out Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell immediately texts Hunter Campbell and says, "I want the fight." So we made it. Silva versus Mitchell. Ask and you shall receive, I guess. That's a fun one. I didn't want anybody to think we're putting a hit out on Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell literally texted immediately after he said it, said he wants to fight, so we're doing it in Miami. So there you have it.
This explains why Bryce Mitchell pulled out of his karate combat fight this week. It all makes sense now. Lastly, this wasn't an announcement from Dana White's Instagram, but it was revealed prior to the announcements that Jamal Hill will fight Khalil Roundtree in the main event at UFC Kansas City on April 26. With all these amazing fights getting revealed, let us know which fights you're excited about in the comment section below. The MMA community is not happy with the UFC 313 pay-per-view. After Dana White revealed Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev, fans weren't too happy to see this rematch happening. Here's what the community had to say. UFC 313 just took a massive hit. It's still a solid card, but it's nowhere near as good as it could have been. Just don't understand this for Gaethje outside of money. This ain't it for his legacy, but what the is this? Rafael gets to fight a top 5 opponent. Why didn't they give it to Gamrot? He had a close fight, Dan Hooker. I even thought he won. But no, they give it to Fiziev, who got beat up by Gamrot. This is ridiculous. Hope Gaethje knocks him clean out. Nobody cares to see Fiziev. Dana, come on. Weak fight as a co-main. 313 is mid-A now. Guess Pereira will have to save another event. Honest to God, who the wanted the Fiziev rematch LMFAO out of all the options we had? Makes no sense at all. Fiziev hasn't even got a win from when they last fought. Hate that Fiziev is the option, as it doesn't help propel your career forward with a win, though it should, but stoked for the fight. Gaethje Fiziev at the same fight mix with battle of who is more washed. Guy who's 36, got up and put out cold by Max, or younger guy who's coming off a very long layoff, short notice, and the major knee injury. Are you guys happy with the new co-main event? What are your thoughts on the UFC 313? Let us know down in the comment section below. Footage surfaced of Arman Tsarukyan wrestling on TikTok. Here's the clip.